my phone on Do Not Disturb, so excuse me while it looks like I'm being crazy right now. Okay, there we go. Now we're on Do Not Disturb. We are good to go. Welcome to Wednesday night. Oh, actually, nope. Saturday night. A few days off. It's been a busy week. I'm welcoming you in. We're warming up. We're going to have a great discussion tonight about addiction, but more importantly, about attachment. What we're attached to that we can't let go of, and how that creates problems in our lives. And oftentimes, addiction with alcohol or substances or other behavioral addictions are a response to cope with those things I'm attached to in unhealthy ways that I don't have a solution for. And we're going to get into a conversation. I'm going to share stories. I want you to get involved. Let's have some fun with this. I'm here for you. Let's make it happen. I'm going to wait a few minutes. I'm kind of going to hang out a little bit and wait for you guys to come online here, and we'll get to go. All right, chat set up. We are good to go. I'm going to hang out, wait for we get some people coming in. I think sometimes we just have to welcome in. I don't see names of who joins, but I appreciate you being here. Tonight we're going to be talking about addiction, but not so much about the addiction, but why the addiction, and maybe find some solutions to help us live healthier lives, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or just problems in your life that you can't seem to get rid of. Let's look at some solutions. Let's have some discovery tonight. Let's make this happen. Um, I'm going to hang out and see how many show up. Give about 3 to 4 minutes to get a little group going here. I know folks are going to come online here. I put this out there, and I'm going to be here every Saturday and Wednesday night, so get used to this grill. We're going to make magic. We're going to change lives, and we're going to change our own lives and live healthier and be more free. That's why I like the idea of freedom from addiction, breaking out of that prison of the soul that we're trapped in, and really getting clear on what that is and what that looks like. Welcome in. If you're chiming in, please leave your name or drop a note in there. Let me know you're here in the chat so I know who's visiting. Or maybe I can go up here. Let me see. Maybe I'm screwing up because I'm not seeing any chats. Oh well. Maybe I just screwed up, but that's okay. I'm here. I want to talk tonight about attachment issues we have with historical things in our lives and how those begin to create negative spaces in our character and our thinking and our perceptions, and how those lead to problems which later in life may lead to alcohol and substance abuse or other behavioral addictive issues that are not in line with who we want to be. I know for one, from my own personal recovery, that a lot of people just said it was about the drugs and the alcohol. Maybe you're something like me. Drugs and alcohol were a small part of my problem. Actually, drugs and alcohol weren't the problem. Those were the solutions that I used to deal with a lot of other things that I couldn't possibly cope with or live with. And so tonight I want to talk about those things and why those exist, where they come from, why they become so persistent in our head and in our heart, and drive us to do things we normally would never do. It's not normal, like I tell people in groups when I'm running it, for somebody to go into a gas station and rob it from opiates, for heroin, for their next fix. But whatever's going on, they're being controlled by a certain part of their brain that they have no control over. They know they're doing wrong, but they do it anyway. But why do they turn to the drug? Why do they turn to the substances? Why do we do that? Because we have things in here that are going on historically that are unresolved. In some programs, they call them resentments. In other programs, they just say trauma, pain, imprinting, the way we were brought up. And it's those things that create narratives about ourselves, about the world around us, about life. And it's those things that we really need to address in recovery. I was just talking to a young man tonight who struggles with coming out of a broken relationship that his actions were a big part of. And he beats himself up horrifically for it and relapses accordingly, often. But this time something was different. Yes, I do, Pookie. Read it many times. I love the book. I don't push it on people, but that's a personal space. And so, in talking with this young man, he talked about how he was raised. I've got to know his story and where a lot of his thinking and narratives and perceptions and how he lives his life came from. And it was a broken home. There were gangs, there were drugs, there was violence. There was an older brother that abandoned him to a lifestyle. And eventually, he just took those things he learned as a child growing up and took them into the only meaningful relationship he had ever had in life. And in that relationship, he met this beautiful woman, had two beautiful babies, and over the course of years, maybe not that many years, she decided she just couldn't take it anymore and moved on. And he's running around with a broken heart, and he's beating himself up. He's blaming her. He's blaming the new old man that's living there with her and the kids. And I understand, but at the end of the day, his actions or lack thereof created a scenario where she chose to move on. She could not deal with the way his lifestyle was anymore. And that's ultimately the thing he struggles with and abuses himself with and turns to drugs or alcohol to medicate that pain and suffering. Somehow perceived as a failure. I've lost everything. What matters? And those things drive relapses and continued abuse. And when I'm talking to him, I asked him, how many times did she ask you to stop? He can't even remember how many times that he kept doing what she asked him not to do before she moved on. And I said, today, we can learn from that rather than beating ourselves up. We can grow up. We can find the way we think about past situations, get clear on what happened, accept it, hard to do, and then begin to grow our lives in a different direction. Ooh. Green oolong, orange oolong tea is strong. Ooh. I threw a little green tea in there too. It just kind of lit that thing up. Wow. I've turned to tea at night. Probably it's got more caffeine. I shouldn't do that at night. But so yeah, attachment issues. What are you attached to in your beliefs, your manners, your experiences in life that have created toxic narratives or toxic beliefs that are impacting your relationships in the world today? That's really at the core of addiction treatment. And it's when we can get into those areas, we can start to unravel them, really begin to heal those things in a really responsible way, and move forward in a healthier, more free life. It's kind of almost like those things we're attached to are like chains or prison bars that we can't break out of. I talk about the prison of the soul a lot. Well, that's what that is made up out of. That's the concrete. That's the barbed wire. That's the cement that prison is built with. Are those things I'm attached to that I live from and have created a way of being that's not healthy? And when we can get clear on that, when you can get clear on that, you can find a path out in freedom. I mean, it's not really a busy night. I think everybody's kind of out doing their thing on the town tonight, but I'm here and I'm going to be here and I'll stay here for 1 hour at least minimum to hang out with you. I should have some people pop through. Let me see. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate the thumbs up. I can't tell. Sometimes with YouTube live streaming, you don't know exactly how many are on. I've had people online more than what shows up and is reflected. So if you're walking in and I don't see you, I appreciate you being here. You know, as for me, I'm an addiction recovery specialist. I'm a counselor. I'm a group facilitator. I do interventions. I do pretty much everything and anything around addiction or addiction related issues in one's life. And I define addiction as much more than drugs and alcohol. And tonight's topic is very important. I encourage you to hang around and spend a few moments or ask questions. But I'm going to just ask this question right here. What are you attached to that's not serving you? What thought, what belief about yourself or the world around you isn't healthy, isn't helping you? Put it in the chat. Let's talk about it. I know I grew up with some of the thoughts that I was unloved, unwanted, nobody loved me, I was abandoned, and that really affected my life a lot. Because if I grew up thinking those things, guess how my relationships with life and people were? Very cold, very distant, very abusive. And it wasn't until I figured out what was really driving my life that I was able to begin changing it. And it's the things that I've attached to in unhealthy ways that fueled my addiction, that fueled my lifestyle, so to speak, because it's so much more than drugs and alcohol. It affected my relationships, how I perceived myself and the world, my self confidence, my identity. And it wasn't until I really started to address these things that I started to find a path out of the insanity that was in my head. It wasn't the drugs. This was the worst drug I think I have ever had going on. That addictive attachment issues. I mean, if I was hurt, if I had pain as a kid, it created a story, it created a ripple. And that ripple eventually led to drugs and alcohol to cope with it because I did not know how to deal with life feeling like nobody cared. It was very lonely. I was very insecure and detached. If you're anything like me, or maybe you have your own set of beliefs, because there are differences within the different spots in our lives that create these spaces that we're attached to. But it's really, this show tonight is about identifying those areas. Like, let's talk about a couple. If you were raised in a family where emotions and love weren't shown and it was very cold, all your needs were met, but there wasn't this love connection, what kind of a relationship to love and affection and feelings and emotions are you going to have as an adult? Probably very cold and distant, not knowing how to accept being hugged or touched, or that touchy feely stuff's going to feel weird because I didn't have it growing up. My programming as I was being raised didn't have that. So it's going to affect my relationships. I'm going to feel something is wrong. And so maybe I do drugs or drink to lower that feeling or make that go away so I can feel more comfortable in groups of people. That's one. Um, Feelings and emotions is a big one. I think a lot of us in society have this notion that we're not allowed to feel, not allowed to express emotions, not allowed to cry, not allowed to talk about those things because it was seen as a sign of weakness. But really, feelings and emotions are a human condition that was given to us by whatever created us or our evolution to this point. And when we deny those things that are very much a part of us and we never learn how to cope with or deal with them, how do you think they're going to express themselves when we become adults? What kind of narratives are we going to have when we feel something that we don't even really understand or know how to navigate? We're probably going to act out. It's going to create anxiety. It's going to create aggression. It's going to create fear, insecurities. And what happens is generally when we have those things going through, like, say, grade school, maybe that joint, maybe that little drink, maybe that little pill, whatever it is that changes that space in here and makes us not feel that way, becomes the way I want to feel the rest of my life. And I become addicted to a substance to cope with an underlying attachment issue to a narrative that was created in my childhood or at some point. Um, Anybody in there? I see a couple people watching in. Is there anything in life that you out there are attached to that you struggle with that's causing you problems? Maybe you're going through life questioning yourself or something in life and you're struggling to get through it. Let's talk about it. Put it in the chat. Let's go. Let's make it happen. I'm here for you. I see, oh, they all disappeared when I asked them to talk about real stuff. I love it. That's what happens though. I'll come across something that makes a lot of sense to me. I'll hear a truth I know and I'll run away from it because it's like I don't want to look within. To look within is a very difficult thing. To look within and see things that aren't working in my life, that are affecting my relationships at home, at work, or in general, I don't want to talk about that stuff. I just want to wish it away. I want to drink it away. I want to work it away. I want to go to the gym and gym it away. And it doesn't leave us, where I'm attached to it until I do something about it. Do any of you chiming in right now have anything you're attached to, both in your thinking, your feelings that you're struggling with, and it's causing problems in your life? This might be the platform for you to share and open up and communicate. The chat's open. What are you attached to that isn't working for you? And if you have overcome some of those things, put that in chat too. That's just as important to encourage those that haven't. Ooh, I love tea, but darn. Hello, hello, hello. And everybody, all my peeps, is asleep tonight or don't want to talk about sobriety and attachment issues. I don't know why you chimed in to see an old man, but I'm here. And I live my life accordingly. Welcome back or welcome in, everybody. It's coming through. Again, it's really a weird, busy night. Saturday nights are generally the night where people come and go a lot. But hopefully, some of you will hang around and listen a little bit. I'm an addiction professional. I work with people every day, with families and loved ones that are struggling through this problem. And tonight, I just want to talk about the things that create addiction, that fuel addiction, that I choose drugs and alcohol or behaviors over actually resolving or dealing with the issues that I'm struggling with. A lot of us have trauma, a lot of us have pain, a lot of us have things we were raised with that aren't healthy and that are creating problems in our lives. And until we begin to do something about that, nothing is going to change. And so tonight, I'm just sitting here talking about that. Solely that. I'm not getting off of it. You know, I could talk about a lot of other stories, but what am I attached to? I think I'm going to tell a story when I see 5 people come on and hang out for a few minutes. I'm going to tell a story about something I was attached to that wasn't even mine, that caused me a lot of disservice and a lot of separation and a lot of problems in life. Welcome in. We're talking about attachment and things we're attached to sometimes that we're not even aware of that cause problems in our lives. I didn't realize that I was attached to a lot of pain from my childhood and beliefs that created about myself and the world around me growing up until I was like 30 years old. And I was having a conversation with somebody on a prison yard. My sponsor and I, we were both in prison. And we were talking about family and stuff. And I've shared this story because it's really a dynamic that changed the course of my life. And maybe some of you are new and haven't heard this, but I'm going to share it anyway. So hang out. You're going to get a prison yard story out of me. So I'm doing my 5th step. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, where you talk about pain and resentment in your life. And I was talking through all these issues, and I came to my father. And I don't know if any of you know me, but if you don't, you will in a second. I had a lot of anger. My dad was never there as a kid. I felt like abandoned, unloved, unwanted, not good enough. My mom was a drug addict, alcoholic in the 1960s. So I was home alone a lot. I was a weird kid. I had a lot of problems. I was very angry, depressed, insecure, isolated. And from that place, I learned to steal. Because if I stole money or had money like other kids, it gave me a sense of equality or being equal to or better than them. That led to shoplifting, to have clothes and things like them. That led to smoking weed with my family at 9 years old, which changed the space in my head and gave me another way to cope with how I felt about myself. And the interesting thing was happening is I was moving away from what I call that little bastard kid that I perceived myself as unworthy, no good, nobody wanted me. And I was evolving into this whole other identity to get away from that person. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s and doing this process that I was talking with my sponsor. And you start, let me see. I'm doing good, brother. Welcome back, Doc. And so I'm talking to my mentor about these resentments I have. And my dad came up and I got hot. I mean, I don't know. You know that where you like having a temper tantrum, a kid having a temper tantrum at Toys R Us because he didn't get the toy he wanted. He was just pissed off. But when I started to talk about my father and my issues with my dad, I got red hot. I was angry. I was pissed off. I was like, this dude didn't love me. He abandoned me. He wasn't there for my mom and me. I mean, you name it. I vomited this stuff out on my sponsor, mentor, father figure, whatever you want to call him. He was an elder to me, and he just sat there and listened to me. And I got it all out. I just put it out there. Amen. I'm in. And so he's sitting there looking at me while I'm venting all this stuff about my father. And he let me finish, and he's like, "Wow, you've been carrying that a long time. That's messed up." And I go, "Hell yeah, I am. Screw that dude." And he's like, "Well, can I ask a couple questions?" And like I was in this tornado of rage and anger, fireworks going off. I think I just heard one pop off outside, but I was in this angry space, and I vented all this out, and he's listened to me, and he goes, "Hey, can I ask a couple questions?" Well, no. First he says, "Oh yeah, can I ask a couple questions?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess that's weird." And he goes, "Do you know why your father wasn't there?" No. Did he or anybody else tell you that he didn't love you? No. Do you know why your mom and him went their separate ways? No. And he must have asked me a series of like 5 to 10 questions, and every one of them was an answer was no. In that storm that I began with this process, talking about my father, got real, real quiet. And I'm looking at him like, what's going on? And he took a deep breath and he goes, you know, it's perfectly understandable that a little boy would create a story about a situation that he couldn't possibly understand. And that's wrong. You didn't deserve that. You should have had someone there to help you through that place, to love you, to help explain what was going on and be honest with you. And you didn't. And I was like, my mouth was open. I was like, what? And he goes, the thing is that what you took from that story, that narrative that was created in that little kid, you have perpetuated nothing but grief in your life and the life of those around you since. And that's not right either, Lance. And he goes, the good thing is we can change that if you want to. You can have a better life. You don't have to be angry anymore. And if I remember right, I started to cry. It was like the first time, it was that first, I call them epiphany moments, where recovery really took on a whole different space. It was like I was free of a prison that I had been in since I was a little boy. And I was like 33 at the time. And so I talk about attachment in this session tonight, in this live tonight, because I know the power of those things we're attached to that we're not even really aware of, that are under the surface of the water until they show up, and then they go under, and then they show up. And the things that created in my life, I turned to drugs and alcohol and chaos to escape until that fateful day, or maybe that blessed day, that day of gratitude for my mentor, that helped me see the truth. That what I was attached to was unhealthy, and whether it was perceived or real, I did not know, but that I could change my life moving forward. And that place was a place of freedom. That was a place of healing. And that's why I want to talk about attachment tonight. I want to ask, what are some things that you may be attached to that aren't working in your life? This is platforms for you. I share to connect with you so that you can share. Um, so, what are some things you may be attached to at home tonight? Because I'm looking at you. I know that you're probably there on your phone by yourself, having a conversation and listening to me, but I need this to be a two-way conversation. I want to be here for you. I want to hear what you have to say because I know I'm not the only one that has things that I was attached to that weren't serving me. I'd broken a lot of broken areas. So I'm going to be quiet. Put something in the chat, something that you're attached to. It doesn't have to be that big, but just something you're attached to that's problematic. And let's talk about it. Let's explore it and see if we can find a way out or just some truth about it that may free you from that place. How you doing today, Doc? Anything new going on? I know I went 0 to 100 on you. I get excited about helping people. It really gets me excited to help people. It's a passion. I can't think of anything I would rather do than help other people break out of that prison of the soul and find freedom. To break away from those things that we're attached to that don't serve us anymore. Well, everybody ran away. But I'm still here. I ain't going nowhere. We still got a good 30 minutes of conversation. I should start doing my clinical notes. Hey everyone, welcome in. If you're new and coming in or revisiting, we're talking about things we're attached to in our thinking and our feelings in our lives that aren't working for us and that are causing us problems. Whether that's a belief, a manner, a habit, a perception. Maybe somebody hurt me and I just can't let it go. I will never forgive them. I will never forget. And so I'm going to go through life living in that pain. And how does that impact my life? How does that impact your life? To live in anger, to live in pain. I don't think, well, I know you're looking in because it's those attachments that are going to keep us in that prison within. Do you feel limited in any way in your life? Wow, they ran away quick when I talked about that. I don't mind. If you want recovery, I'm here. I can't play with the whole running away thing anymore. I only know one volume and that's true. Let's talk about real talk. This is one I want this platform. If I don't have anything else but one person, two people show up that want to have a sincere conversation and it grows from there to where people show up that really want to are hungry and want to change and want to grow their life and break away from the things that aren't doing them any service anymore. Yeah, maybe you'll come back next week or next month when the pain gets hard enough. I know for me the pain had to get so hard that I was willing to do something about it. Until then, I was trapped. I was stuck and I lived accordingly and I hurt myself and everything around me. And so addiction is just addiction, but recovery is about a path out of what created the addiction and what has been haunting me my whole life. It's why do in recovery rooms they talk about resentments as a core thing, our number one thing they say. I don't think it's the resentment per se. I think it's what created the resentment and whatever that was created from there that is the real problem. You know, on a side story, and I talk about some real life experiences. When I was young, I was assaulted by a gang, a group of people in a very vicious way. Very young man. And I never forgot it. And I never forgave that group of people. And I was very, very much opposed to doing anything for them. And if I could do anything that would hinder them, I would participate in it. I created a very rigid, angry place, a judgmental spirit because I had been a victim. And years later, doing my work in recovery and talking about these very things that I was attached to, I remember talking about what happened and saying, I can never forget that. I don't mess with those people. I wouldn't pee on them if they were on fire. I hate them. My anger about what had happened to me had created a dialogue that carried across an entire group of people. And I wouldn't have anything to do with that group of people. And looking back on it, I understand now, but it wasn't healthy and it wasn't right. And the people that were around me, they didn't deserve it. But what happened in sharing that with my mentor is he used to give me homework assignments. And when I talked about being victimized by this group of people, he was very apologetic. He explained that I didn't do anything wrong, I didn't deserve it, and that it was some sick people that did a sick act. That didn't make it any better, but I quit blaming myself for trying to figure out what I did wrong or what I could have done better. And I accepted the fact that some people had hurt me. And the homework that week was to go and see and hang out with some people from that group or that group of people. I'm just going to leave it there because I don't get into specifics anymore because I just don't like talking like that anymore. It's not my spirit. And at first I looked at him like he was crazy. Like, how dare you ask me to go talk to them or even get to know them? I don't care. And he's like, okay, let me know how that works for you. And I'm like, ugh. He used to piss me off. And so, of course, me wanting to change my life and go to any lengths to break out of this prison, out of these attachments, out of these narratives, out of this pain, I went and talked to about 5 people from that group that week. And when I got back with Rich, we talked, and he asked me what I had found out. And me being honest at that point in my recovery, I said, it's really unfair that I judged an entire group of people by the actions of a few. And that's not right. And he goes, good job. Next, let's go. And it was like I realized that I stereotyped an entire group of people based on what a handful had done to me as a young man. But can you see the attachment? And can you see the behaviors that evolved from and the perceptions and the relationship to a group of people because of something that happened? It's like usually a trauma will happen in our lives, a painful incident, and then that creates a ripple or a reaction, and it creates a space within me or you that's not healthy, and we live from it. And we're not even really realizing that I'm less trusting, I'm more closed, I have a lot more anxiety, I have a lot more fear, and I go through life perpetuating this thing that I have to be guarded, I have to protect myself, I can't trust this, I can't trust that. That is insanity at its best. And I'm not saying it's not normal, because when we're hurt, we're hurt. And a lot of times we don't have people there that understand how to help us navigate through that pain, to understand it, to heal it. And we live with that pain, and it creates a narrative that I can't trust, I can't be open. And in that place, I'm around certain groups of people or certain places, and I get anxiety. I feel stress. Yeah, and Z, I 100% agree, but the problem is that when I was hurt, I closed. I felt unsafe. I felt judgmental at the people that had hurt me. And it was really, it's insane to look back on that for like 10 years of my life. I didn't mess with an entire group of people because of what a handful had done to me. And I didn't even understand that. I just was angry. You know, pain, if you hurt me now, it creates pain. And my response to pain is anger or pushback or suppression, that anger within myself trying to figure it out. And that pus that festers over time and becomes a resentment and a belief in a way of being that isn't really congruent with who I am, but it's evolved to be who I am until somebody helps me identify that and do something about it. Like you said, exposure therapy. Go talk to some people, get to meet some people from that group. Realize that the entire group of people on this planet from that set or that group did not hurt you. A handful of sick people did. And it's not fair to judge an entire group of people based on what a handful of people did to you. Didn't make what happened any better, but it let me out of a place of prison, and it dropped a level of judgment and wrath. It's because you were able to segregate yourself versus a minority that has to intermingle with others. Hmm. Mm. Okay. Hmm. I mean, I understand, I think, the line you're going down. I mean, you can be more specific and just kind of be like, I know that based on, I don't want to be too opinionated. I got to think about my words here. I don't want to offend people, and I also want to be honest. I understand that there are groups of people that are marginalized and held back in our society. And that's wrong. But not everybody that is from my background perceives the world like that. And it's just as unfair to perceive a group of people as an oppressor as it is to for me to blame all of that group of people that hurt me, if that makes sense. I think when we can come together and not let the past dictate our future and make a stand for unity and connection and challenge the beliefs that have perpetuated most of our lives and our parents' and parents' lives and make a stand for freedom, that we want to stand up for us, humanity, all, that change really can happen. I don't want to look at differences. I don't want to be judged by what my grandparents or great grandparents did or didn't do. I don't want to be judged for a person who holds particular perspectives that I don't hold. And I mean, I know I'm around the edges of this because I want to be respectful and I don't want to stir up a bunch of energy that doesn't isn't really a necessary thing for me at this point. But I do know a lot of people that are attached to things like that. Hey, I think sometimes you just got to embrace people because the word, it's interesting, and don't take this bad, but the word bigot, it's a powerful word, and I understand the word. There are other words that I understand that people use that I don't ever let come out of my mouth because they're not appropriate and not how I want to live my life or define my relationships with people or perpetuate in other people's lives. I'll give a story. I don't know if you've met me before, but this might be a real good conversation about attachment. My father figure growing up, because I really didn't know my father until like a couple years ago, he came out of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. For lack of a better word, he was racist. And I don't mean that in the context of what I see on some of these fringe groups, this racism that's like bullshit. I'm just going to call it what it is. He was raised in a society where racism was normal. He grew up in school systems and communities and families and restaurants and stores where that belief system, that perception, that attachment was very real for him. He had never known anything different. And I can remember as a little boy in the 60s. And I don't know how old you are, Z, but I'm 61. So in the 60s, a lot of stuff was going on in the country. A lot of things were being addressed. And my father figure would express very racist, very derogatory statements about groups of people. I'm not going to repeat them because they're inappropriate. And I don't even like that space. But I used to look at him in awe, like, what do you mean? Why would you say that? Because here's the real truth. He came out of a different generation. He didn't know any better. He had a belief system and an attachment to a culture that wasn't mine. And in the 60s, everybody has to remember in the 60s, one of the most amazing things happened in this country, in my opinion, desegregation. They didn't put white kids in white schools and black kids in black schools and Mexicans and Asians. And, it was like we all got thrown together. And that was one of the greatest gifts in my life. If there's any one thing that I think was an amazing thing was desegregation. Because me, my black friends, my Mexican friends, my Asian friends, we were chasing the same girls. We were hanging out. We were breaking bread. We were playing football together. We were friends. We didn't see or have the kind of indoctrination that my father figure had. And yes, his beliefs were inappropriate to the time. They were inappropriate in general to what we know now today, but in his space and in his time, that was America. And in many ways, it still is. But I think we've evolved a little bit and we see a little bit clearer and we can address these issues in an honest, upfront way. I don't know that there are entities and powers that don't want that to grow. I'm going to leave that alone. I have my own personal beliefs. But I do know this: I did not become my father. I was graced by desegregation and growing up with a mixed culture, with a mixed society. I didn't want to say mixed. I hate even saying that word bothers me. We grew up together. We're human. We eat the same. We do everything the same. And it bothers me today because it seems like we're kind of like going back to that pocket. We're going back to, well, I believe this and you believe that, so you're wrong and I'm right, and I have to attack you or you have to attack me. And it's like militant warfare, and there's not this anymore. That's my greatest pain in our society right now. That people in power are dictating or doing on both sides. We're attached to their things, what they're generating or what their narrative is, rather than breaking bread together and saying, how you doing? I love you. Let's get lunch. How's the family? Let's do a picnic and bring the community together. Let's leave all that at the door and let's just see one another and help one another. Isn't that an amazing thing? I mean, maybe I sound naive, but that's my spirit, and I've been able to do that. I don't play that game. I don't even like that language. I don't like seeing anybody spoken down to, denigrated, diminished, judged. I don't. I don't, that's the thing about that. That's why I framed it the way I did, Z, because I think that he had a narrative that he was attached to from his childhood growing up, that was normal to him. Now, is it fair to call him a bigot based on his generation and what he knew? I don't think I can say he was racist. I don't even know if they even thought that way. They just said that they're different and they're over there and we're over here and that's the way it was my whole life, and he never knew any different. Whereas desegregation was like, for us, like broke that into a million pieces in many parts of the country. I grew up in California, so I mean, we're a little bit more inclusive, and it's a much more enmeshed society here. It's not so segregated. Um, but yeah, let me read that again. I don't know if I could say he was truly racist. I just think that was the narrative of his time. That was the thing that they attached to and learned in their culture, in their world. Where we would perceive it as racist today, in their, I don't know what they would say. I think it was just that's how it was, you know? And so that's a very speculative word. But he did say a lot of inappropriate things. I mean, it was like, eh, it was opposed to what I was learning as a little kid in the education system and in my community growing up. So I don't judge these things. I just see them for what they are and the attachment to narratives. Do I have any attachments to narratives? I had a whole bunch of attachments to narratives and belief systems from growing up that I didn't even realize until later in life. And I got to challenge them. I get to say, is this who I want to be? And in many instances, no was the answer, and I had a choice to change and to let that go and detach from it. Some more than others. But yeah, appreciate that input and that question. Because yeah, it's that the famous speech by Dr. King. When he says, I can see us all coming together. I can't paraphrase it, but that unity piece about the little white kid, the little black kid, the little Mexican kid, one. That's my heart. Yes, um, but I'll give you, how would I put this? Yes, and I believe that when we're in a crucible like that where you were, the mission is more important than the narrative. That doesn't mean the narrative is appropriate or okay. And I don't think that anybody should be judged by the color of their skin, their faith, their religion, their culture, their country of origin. And when that happens, that's inappropriate. And I'm opposed to that. I just don't go there. And I think that it's inappropriate because I don't think anybody deserves to be looked down to or spoke down to based on somebody else's attachments or narratives or what they've been taught. I think we all have to be given dignity and respect, and if we're not, that's a problem. Now, I'm not saying we're going to change the world, but I know for me, I choose not to do that. And I think a lot of times we as people give power to those things rather than, like you're saying, I look past it. I want to break bread with you. I want to understand why you believe what you believe and why I believe what I believe. And maybe we'll find it's a little bit different than what either of us believes. And we can learn together to be better. But see, we're going back to attachments and addiction. And for me, the alcohol and the drugs were what I did to deal with the places of the heart that were broken, the narratives that weren't appropriate about myself or the world. And I medicated a lot of that away because I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to accept it. And the gift of what we do in recovery is we begin, once we're sober of the substances and the things we do, it's just you and me having a conversation of what's getting in the way of me having a healthier life. What are the things I'm attached to that are holding me back? And when we can start unweaving those things and start taking the knots out and cleaning up the path in our spiritual journey and connecting to one another and helping one another, I have no doubt, and from my own experience, anything is possible. For me, let me see. Hi, Prashant. Welcome in. For me, one of the biggest things, a lot of people, you see my picture in the thumbnail for this, but a lot of people know my story. First 19 years of my life, I was a broken kid. I think I was 19 going on like 7 or 8, emotionally, mentally, emotionally, all that. And at 19, I got in trouble. I had been doing drugs and alcohol progressively with criminal behavior, with ever more violent groups of people, and ended up going to prison for 27 years. And I went into prison a very broken young man. And I say that because you might have seen that guy in the photo, but inside he was a scared little boy doing whatever he could do to survive. Amen. I agree. And so, in that crucible, that darkness of prison, I made a lot of good friends. And I found a path of understanding myself and why I do what I did and why I believed the way I believed and where the energy and the anger and all the fuel that came to push that came from. And I was able to begin to undo those attachments. Doesn't mean that I'm not attached in the sense of I still have the memory of my childhood and my past. That will never go away. I can't erase my memories or my thoughts or my experiences. But I don't have to live in the pain. I don't have to live in the hurt. I don't have to live in the narrative that those things created or the attachments that those things held me to anymore. That's what recovery really gave me, is I was able to detach from those things, to see them clearly, to get my story straight, and to understand why my life was the way it was, and to see what I needed to change and start to practice differently. And when I did that, my life changed. I mean, the person you see here having this conversation with all of you that are watching in is not the person I was at 19. I didn't know this language. I didn't know this place in my soul. And so when I talk about attachments and I talk about serious things, I know people come in and they go, "Oh no, I don't want to hear that. I just came here to see somebody like eating 10 watermelons or a hot dog contest or whatever." That's not me. I'm going to continue to have honest questions, honest conversations, share honest things with folks because I think that's the path out. I don't want to be entertainment. I want to be a help. I want to be a servant. I want to really hold a place of sacred truth with you in this platform and change our lives. And I think that this technology and this ability is a gift. And so I'm going to keep showing up every Wednesday and every Saturday night at 7 p.m. If you're chiming in and you haven't subscribed to this channel, I would very much humbly ask you to and to support me in what my mission is to help people. Share the message, share the site, share my everything. I'm not charging anything for this stuff. I just want to be connected to people and build a platform to help you. I do work privately, but I'm not bringing that in here. I mean, there'll be advertisements. We can talk about that another day. But for right now, I just want to help people. I want to have real conversations about us as human beings and how we can transform and be free and have better lives, not only for ourselves, but everybody around us. Ugh. Oof. We got the heater on in the office. It's a little toasty. Any questions or anything? Anybody that's been chiming in and watching? Any comments? Any thoughts? I'm gonna be quiet a little bit and just lean back and listen before I go in. I think I gotta take my wife. She wants to go out tonight. I'm gonna go spend some time with her. I've been working a lot and I miss her. She's an amazing woman. She's kept me out of a lot of trouble and she inspires me every day. Where'd you go, Z? Okay. I don't know. I've never seen that before. But you're more than welcome to come in and have a conversation with me anytime, Z, and I appreciate you coming in. That was a very good conversation, enlightening. I know probably a lot of people are going to be like, oh my goodness. But you know what? Real conversation, I think, is sometimes good for us. Oh, that tea is strong. Well, I appreciate all of you being here. I'm going to wind it down now. I appreciate all of you. And I will see you on Wednesday night, 7 p.m. I'll have something up. Let's start another conversation then. Thank you again and have a blessed night. Peace.